Lawrence Frank of the Los Angeles Clippers. He was a coach for a while, and he's now been an executive in the NBA for a while. He is the president of basketball operation of the Clippers. And upon the arrival of James Harden, he said, quote, James has an elite skill set, and all he cares about is one thing. He wants to win a championship. Now, I'm going to cut Lawrence Frank some slack because that's exactly what he has to say. That is like saying you look nice in this, even if you look absolutely awful in it. But if there's one thing we know for certain about James Harden, it is that he cares about a lot of things besides winning a championship. The title of the story, the headline on the story actually says, James Harden ready to sacrifice for title. Has James Harden ever done a lot of sacrificing that you've been aware of? Again, I don't mean to harp on this. He's not the only person in the NBA who has had these sorts of things, but I do find it a tad galling when someone like him continues to bully his way. I don't know what other word there is. In Houston, he ate his way out of these situations while being paid tens of millions of dollars as a professional athlete. And now every place he goes, they welcome him with these same open arms. So let me give you some quotes from the past. James Harden was traded to the 76ers February 15th, 2022. He said, I'm just happy and blessed that I'm here. As Doc and everybody knows and everybody wants, the goal is to win a championship. I'm excited for the opportunity. Well, he was a big part of the reason they didn't win a championship, and then he immediately got Doc fired. On Doc Rivers, he said, one of the best coaches to ever coach the game of basketball. Why wouldn't I want to be led by that? Well, the one thing we know is that he didn't want to be led by that. He didn't like Doc. He didn't like the fact that Doc wouldn't just capitulate to him wanting to do everything he wanted to do. And again, he got Doc fired as quickly as he could. So that was what he said when he got to the Sixers. But hold on, there's more. 13 months before that, he went to the Nets. And after his first game, he said, I hope you can tell by my smile and my play that I'm excited for the opportunity. I'm very unselfish. I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. I'm so excited for Kyrie to get back. He's a key piece to what we are trying to do. Well, he hated Kyrie, and he got himself out of there as quickly as he could. The whole thing was an epic disaster. It was one of the worst and most embarrassing episodes that any professional sports franchise has had in recent memory. Was what became of the Brooklyn Nets of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden. And so now the story is, quote, James Harden ready to sacrifice for title. So, Bubba, just hold on to those. Just cut those clips. Clip those off and be ready. And when this inevitably falls apart and he winds up somewhere else to finish his career, we'll go back and read what he said when he got to the Clippers. The owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, who is only that because his father is one of the great legends of pro football history in a million different ways. For anyone who doesn't know, Al Davis was an assistant coach, a head coach, the commissioner of a league, a general manager, and an owner. One of the architects of football as we know it today. And leaves the team to his son. And his son has turned it into a laughingstock, a joke. They're a joke. They're a punchline. And it has never felt more awful than it does today. And if you're saying to yourself, wow, Greeny sounds really personally offended by this, I am. Because I love that organization. When I was a kid in the 70s, the Jets were so bad. And of course, they were and would always be my favorite team. But you had to pick another team to like that might win something. You had to pick a team that in the playoffs you were rooting for, and the Raiders were my team. John Madden, Ken Stabler, Cliff Branch and Fred Biletnikoff, Dave Casper, Art Shell, Gene Upshaw, Dave Dalby, what was the name of this? George Bueller, John Vella. That was the offense. The defense, Otis Sistrunk and Ted Hendricks and Jack Tatum and George Atkinson. Ray Guy was the punter. They were an unbelievable. That meant something. The Raiders and the Steelers were the great rivalry of that time. It elevated football. And then they bring in Tom Flores and they bring in Jim Plunkett and they win Super Bowls. And then they have another decent little run there with Gruden. And now they're just a joke, and they have been forever. So it does bother me a little bit because that's an organization that should matter in the NFL, and it doesn't. Yesterday, the story took a turn from which it will not recover. Video emerged of a game between Central Michigan and Michigan State. This game was played on September 1st, the opening game for these teams. Michigan State, of course, is a subsequent opponent of Michigan, and by the way, Michigan beat them 49-0 a few weeks later. But in that game, which was played at night, there was a person on the sidelines of Central Michigan, on the Central Michigan sideline, wearing sunglasses at a night game, who appears to be Connor Stalions. It has not been confirmed that it's this guy, but what we are essentially to take as at least as being alleged is that this guy, the center of the Michigan sign stealing scandal, was on the Central Michigan University sideline wearing their gear and some sort of credential while this game was being played, and thus would have had outstanding access, if he wanted to watching the Michigan State sideline, because it was literally right across the field. He was standing exactly 53 yards away. Now, so many things about this make no sense to me. The primary one being, I've never been on a football team, but is it possible that someone can be down there who doesn't belong there and no one would notice? Like, no one on the Central Michigan staff or team said, hey, who's that guy? He was certainly very easy to notice. He's wearing sunglasses. It's dark outside. Every video you see, no one else is wearing sunglasses. He's the one person wearing sunglasses on this sideline. Would no one have said, hey, who the hell is that? But the problem I have, so my immediate assumption is there's no way it's him. But Central Michigan has not come out and said, no, it's actually Frank Finkelstein. He absolutely belonged there. Here's why he was there, and here's what he was doing. So the fact that they've not immediately identified who this person is, there's only one conclusion that I can possibly reach. It's Connor Stalions. How'd he get there? What's he doing there? Why is he there? Why did no one recognize it? Did he actually videotape things from those sidelines? How is it possible that it's taken this long for anyone to figure this out, that has happened? And does it mean that this thing is infinitely more than I and many others have thought it was? And in the end, will it mean the end of Jim Harbaugh at Michigan? And if so, does that happen before or after the college football playoff? I have all of those questions. I have answers to none of them. Zero. So someone help me. Hembo, what the actual heck is going on? They traded what will inarguably be one of the top 40 picks in next year's draft, and may very well wind up being much higher than that, for a player in Montez Sweat who is going to be a free agent when the season ends, which means they will have as good a chance as anyone, if they want to sign him then and still have the 35th pick in the draft. But they chose to get him now so he can play for them these last 8 games of a hopelessly lost season, and then they can try and sign him the same way. Are they thinking that if he comes into the organization, he will find himself thinking, oh, I got to be a part of this? Who would ever leave here? You're probably better off leaving the mystery in that one. It's another just terribly run team, terrible mistakes, that terrible decisions that don't ever line up with each other. The timing of everything is always wrong and backwards, and what you are left with is a team that is just basically bad forever.
This is one of the most foolish trades in the NFL that I can ever remember. This is right now, like exactly at this time, this would be the 37th pick. And he's a good player, but he's not a premium player, and so you're signing up for half a season of Montez Sweat on a 2-6 team for what? For the right to franchise him for $20 million, for the exclusive right to extend him for the next 2 months? Like, it doesn't make a lick of sense, especially when you consider that an hour later, the 49ers traded for Chase Young in what is now scheduled to be the 100th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, it is one of the more foolish decisions I can ever remember. Like, this is a team that just gave away a pick for Chase Claypool not long ago. Have you not learned your lesson? The reason that teams hoard these draft picks is because they're so valuable. The 37th pick in the draft is going to be 4 years of cheap control. 4 years and something like $7 million guaranteed. Like, the opportunity cost here is massive. This is This is really, really foolish.
Yeah,
really foolish.
It makes no sense. That's the point. I've always said I don't have a problem with people who make decisions I disagree with. I have a problem with people who make decisions that make no sense. The things that you do have to have some connection to each other. And going all the way back, I don't want to start this whole thing over again, but going all the way back to not firing Matt Nagy before they drafted Justin Fields, everything they have done made no sense. That was the beginning of it, and everything they have done since then has been logically inconsistent with everything else.